Listen, a couple of big things have happened in the past couple of months. Things that developers have been praying for and asking for at least 10 years. Maybe some of them maybe even longer than that.
Even longer. Yeah.
You developers, and I'm saying you because you're the association of developers. You got what you wanted. Is it everything you dreamed of, or how close to making a real difference is this going to turn out to be? Do you think?
It's definitely good that these things happen. That's for sure. Finally, they are there. It took much, much longer than anybody anticipated, but finally we are there.
Hmm.
That the fact that the result could have been better is for sure, but it's always the case. You never can have an ideal dream solution. And but anyway, both the building code as well as the Metropolitan Plan are good steps forward, and I think everybody is enjoying it. So for me, these things are finally there, and that's good for the industry, and it's good for the society, I believe, because in a number of places, especially in the construction code, the burden that is related to the process is getting smaller. So even the state must benefit out of that, I believe.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the infrastructure requirements that the country still has to make, that Prague still has to make, that all the big cities have to make, they're huge, and they're really holding back society. And with all
Yeah,
that, and
exactly.
when the state
Yeah.
can't do it, that just builds frustration with the state in general. I mean, I can't believe it's not in everybody's interest on some level.
Exactly. Imagine, if you have something like I have also right now the case that we are 7 years discussing with the authorities whether our building permit issued back in 2019 is valid or not.
Hmm.
Imagine how many people have to get knowledge of that, cannot do other stuff, because they have to solve this, and that's crazy. In some places you have to conclude that the state does not work. That the processes
Yeah.
are so complicated, so complex, and there are so many entities entering into the discussion that the process simply does not work.
Which,
And
which
this,
and that
in
always
both of the cases, there is an attempt to do something about that and to improve the situation.
And the problem when the state doesn't work is that it helps, especially in a time of political division, is it really aids all these types of parties that are essentially anti-democratic, because all they just say, see,
Yeah,
nothing works, it's all corrupt,
yeah,
and then they say,
yeah,
forget Europe, forget
yeah.
all of that.
Exactly. It's going down to the core of the fight for the democracy, because
Yeah.
when you have a state where people do not feel it works, it puts doubt about what they are feeling and thinking about their society. And that's so in both of the cases with the Metropolitan Plan as well as with the Stavební zákon, it's to move forward, no
Right.
doubt.
Try to sum up. I mean, enough political philosophy. Let's talk bricks and mortar. What does it change? And let's start with the Metropolitan Plan. What are the top two or three things that people should think of in terms of in terms of the big picture that it allows developers and urban planners in general to do? What does it make possible that should benefit not just developers and the construction of flats, but the construction of neighborhoods and communities?
Yeah, when talking about the fact, and people asking me, I mean, that's obvious because I'm representing the industry, that this is good for developers. But again, the same with the Stavební zákon, it's good for the society, it's good for the city, it's good
Hmm.
for the planners, it's good for the bureaucracy.
Hmm.
So the Metropolitan Plan is certainly simpler than the existing land use plan. So that's fact. So it's got less these funkční plocha. You've got less uh, just this particular stipulation about the concrete condition. So it's good. It's simpler.
But by
We
that you mean
thought,
it's less granular, in which every single
yeah,
piece of land it's
yeah,
exactly
yeah,
said what can be there and therefore what
yeah,
can't be there, because that really
yeah,
limits the freedom of the
yeah.
current demand for that space.
Exactly. In the old plan, you have decades of functions. You can not decades, but the dozens, dozens of funkční plocha and of these particular cases. In the Metropolitan Plan, you've got 4 now. So
Right.
so that's simply the fact, and so we thought it could be even more simple, even simpler, it could even better, but that's the way it is. That's I know that this is a compromise, and there are a number of entities that have something to say about it. So it's definitely simpler. That's fact. It's modern, and it reflects the current status of the development of the society. In other words, it allows you to build more dense, more height, so even the height limit again is one of the key issues that we are putting in doubt, and we are trying to improve that, because the 70-meter limit is in our opinion nonsense. But anyway, there was a attempt, to make these things easier, and that's not only good for the developers, but it's good for the city, because if you build higher and dense, it's more economical, it's more ecological, and all these kind of things. So these things making from the Metropolitan Plan a good tool, in my opinion.
Right. And I think that word density is a really important one, because I think it really embraces the concept of density, which is good for everything from making the communities that develop their sort of more intense, and it makes things like metro developments far more economical and more efficient from an investment point of view.
And exactly, and well, we still live in this like NIMBY atmosphere, so somebody's calling. Okay, the NIMBY atmosphere. So the fact that the Metropolitan Plan was approved is a clear sign that the things should change. That we are pro construction, that we are pro development, that we want to do something with the city, and we are prepared to do something for it. So to changing the atmosphere, like Petr Hlaváček is always saying, radost stavět, is a sign that something should be happening. The Pražská Philharmonie and these kind of things are clearly show that the city has intention to change that.
Right.
So there is not this kind of rigid atmosphere that any new construction is wrong and bad, etc. So that's in my opinion also a very important sign.
Right. Now, how about the construction, the new construction law? There's 2 issues that I'm interested in with that. First of all, do you think the centralization of the relative centralization of decision making for that will end up being a positive aspect? And are you worried that these more centralized offices are going to be able to find enough people? That's one thing. And well, let's start with that.
I'm definitely sure that it will help. So the fragmentation that we currently have is a real problem. So it's a practical problem that you arrive to a building office which is not properly managed, because the people do not have a clear instruction about how to work. They differ. The decision making process differs among different stavební úřady even in městské části in Prague. So you can find a different opinion about that. So centralization is, in my opinion, a key. But what is even more important is that the decision is being taken out from the municipalities, is giving to be a state agenda. So the state is now finally being completely 100% responsible for what's happening concerning the decision making and the permitting in the construction business. And that was not here before. If we still have the very fragmented decisions, and now the state will just simply create a one organization, like you have a finanční úřad or katastrální úřad or whatever, and he will govern it. So in our opinion, that's in fact the most important fact of the whole change.
How do you, the usual argument that gets brought out from that's used against that is that you're cutting down on democracy, because the state organization, it can't know or reflect the needs of the small community that this construction is going to impact. What's the best argument against that?
That's for sure not, because the municipalities, they will be part of the process anyway. They are not losing their position as being a part of the process, so they will still be in the position of being able to file appeals. So nothing changing on that. What is changing that you are taking it because now the municipality is really in a difficult situation because it's sitting on both sides of the table. On one side, it's complaining and it's filing appeals. In the same moment, it's making decision about its own appeals. I know that there are some amendments how to modify that, but this is the major problem. Now the state will say, is it right or is it not? And the municipalities still have the right to appeal and make the modification. And I do not subscribe to the opinion that you always need to have the building office close to the people. That's nonsense. In the digital era, when you will be clicking this on your computer, this does not make any sense. And if there is a need to talk to people about the stuff concerning their development in their village, the municipality can always have a sort of like information centrum or whatever they do. But the fact that the decision making is moving out from that and is being controlled by the state is good to my opinion.
Okay, and then just finally, how will the new construction law interact with, say, the Brno master plan and Prague's Metropolitan Plan? Are there there's been concern, I think, from some people that these two things are not going that this is going to lead to problems even for developers.
I don't think so. The new construction laws is just opposite. It's giving a more responsibility and more power to the municipalities concerning issuing their own land use plans. So that's just opposite. The municipalities, they get more power with respect to what they want to achieve in their office in their village.
And for developers, do you think this sets up a clear system, a predictable system for what they can do on what piece of land? Are you confident that the two laws can combine well?
I believe so because at the moment, the municipality, when they want to issue a land use plan, they also have to partly talk to the state, and it is going to be abolished. That's not going to be. So now the municipality will be fully responsible what they approve that, and it's also they will have to talk to builders and to the people in their community what they really want to achieve on that side. But they will be solely responsible for that, and that's, in my opinion, the right decision, because the finally the master decision should always come from the council in that particular village, and nobody else should interfere. That's also very pro-democratic. Of course, there will be places where these kind of decisions done by the council in that village will be against some developer's plan. I'm sure of that. That it will be like that, but that's okay.
It's normal.
If that's normal, if simply the council in that particular village comes to the conclusion that they do not want to have development in their office whatsoever, entirely, they are fully authorized to make such a decision, and I'm okay with that. There should nobody be forcing them to, because that's really the supreme level of making decision in a democratic society. So, in my opinion, it's also very pro-democratic.
Okay. Listen, the job of the Association of Developers is always to want something more. 2026 has been a great year in terms of those two laws, but what's next for you? What's the next important thing that you think should be tackled?
There are the lower levels of these permitting procedures, like the norms and the vyhláškas, all these kind of stuff. So that's one of our activities, that we are going lower. We are now discussing with the Ministry of Interior, we are discussing creating a big committee that should go one by one, all of the, just like not norms, but all of the group of norms, and see what is really necessary to keep, what can be abolished, and simply, trying to make the burden of the permitting, even in the lower level decision, just easier and more practical than it is right now.
Okay. Good stuff. Thanks very much, Tomáš.